You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, Episode 9. In this episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, we're talking waterfowl shotguns and what you should consider when you're looking to buy one. And then we're going to be joined by Tim Schloss of Tim Schloss Taxidermy to talk waterfowl taxidermy and what you can do to make sure you get the best mount possible. Welcome to the show. This is episode 9 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We've got a great show lined up for you this week. We're going to be talking hunting shotguns and what you should consider when you're looking to buy a shotgun and whether you should go new versus used. So we're going to get into that and talk a little bit about some things that maybe will help you out in your next buying decision. And then we're going to be joined by Tim Schloss of Tim Schloss Taxidermy. He's going to come on the show and just talk about taxidermy in general with us and sort of share some things that you should look for when you're considering a taxidermist. And, really important, he's going to talk to us about what you got to do with your bird after you've made the harvest until you get it to the taxidermist and how you can, preserve it to make sure you get the best possible trophy. Joining me in all of those discussions here today is going to be my co-host, Dan Harushka, also known as Danimal Harushka. Danimal, how are you?
Hey, I've been waiting for that plug for quite a while now. And on a side note, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I figured I'd hold off a little while. I didn't want to scare off any of the new listeners. This only being our 9th episode, but I honestly, I just couldn't hold off any longer. It's a nickname that I think I can take credit for coining you with. I'm not sure completely, but I think I had a piece of it.
Yeah, and that was back in Legion baseball.
Back to our high school baseball days. So
that's when it started.
Yeah, very, very. We go back a long way. So, hopefully I don't refer to you as Danimal down the road. And if anyone hadn't listened to this episode, they'll have no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway, Dan, we're going to talk about hunting shotguns on this episode, and you and I have had some experiences with shotguns in the field and issues, and our fair share of problems. So I think that as we have this discussion, we have some legitimate insight that we can provide to our listeners for things that they should consider when looking to make that purchase.
Right. And, when we started talking about this, I was just thinking, when some people are always going to buy new and some people are always going to buy used. So, we can talk a little bit about both, but I was thinking about car buying, actually, and I've never bought a new vehicle, and I've always had used, and it's always worked. And there's some people that just absolutely won't do that. So, I mean, it's a good conversation. And as far as the used side, just like looking for a new vehicle on a car lot, you're always looking for something. So, we can give a couple pointers, and hopefully it'll help someone out.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong or good or bad or anything like that. I mean, I think that there's just some sort of, thought process more than anything that needs to go into the purchase of a hunting shotgun and, making sure that you get what you're looking for and what's going to be useful for you in the field, whether it be new or used. So we'll touch on some of that stuff in here in just a minute. But before we get into that, I wanted to actually share a good hunting shotgun story with our audience and, something that I've went through recently. I hunt with a Beretta A300 Outlander. It's a 3-inch chamber, waterfowl shotgun. It's came out new from Beretta, and I think it was 2012. I want to say was the first year that they had it, and I bought it in late 2012 in December timeframe. I think it was a Christmas present type of deal. But it's their entry level auto loader. I wasn't in a position where I wanted to spend $1,200 or $1,500 on a higher end model, so I bought their base model, and I bought it in the Realtree. Max 4 camo or Max 5 camo or whatever it is. And, I'd been really happy with the gun. And this year when I started shooting early season with it, I was having an issue with the forend. And, there's tabs on that piece that sit up against the receiver. And I'm not going to get too much into the details of it because I think it'd just be difficult to describe without seeing pictures and things. But anyway, the forend was not functioning properly, and how I was having issues when I was firing the gun. So I called Beretta up after our early 4-day split here in Virginia. And, my expectation was I was going to have to ship the gun in, and it was going to be 4-6 weeks, and our season comes back in mid-November, and I was worried that I wouldn't have that particular gun to use, and all of that sort of things going through my mind. So I called them up and explained to them what was happening, and they had me kind of strip the gun down on the phone, and I told them and what I was looking at and that kind of thing. And without me pressing them, without me sort of hemming and hawing or making any kind of issue, they offered to send me a brand new fore-end, no cost to me, priority shipped. I had it in 2 days. The fit and finish on the new fore-end is awesome. It's got a upgraded feature to it. So I think essentially what the problem was perhaps my fore-end in the original models was a design flaw. So the one that I've got now is going to work perfectly. It's going to fix the issue, and I couldn't be more happy about my experience with Beretta. So, I'm not here to say that Beretta is the only shotgun you should consider and that kind of stuff. But, with my personal experience, I'm incredibly happy with their customer service. They treated me as if I had bought a $1,500 or a $2,500 shotgun from them. It didn't matter that my gun was only, $720 or whatever it was. So I felt really, really good about my experience. And, with that, based on that alone, you can guarantee that, when I'm in the market for another shotgun for my son or, another one for me or what have you, I'm definitely going to be considering the Berettas again. So just a good experience with their customer service. And I want to, make sure I give credit where credit is due. So I know, Dan, you've had some pretty good experiences with Waterfowl, shotgun manufacturers as well in the past.
Yeah. And the one, my mom actually bought me a shotgun, and it was a Stoeger. It was the M2000 model, same 3-inch chamber. And after about a year, there's a pin that was bent inside it, and I actually took it to a gunsmith around here, and he tried to fabricate one and just couldn't get it right. So he ended up calling them, and they said, can you ship it back to us? And I had no idea this was going on, and I think I probably had that gun for 3 years, I'm thinking. So, there's definitely no warranty on it. And the guy, he ended up calling me back, and he said, hey, did you have any sentimental value with that shotgun? And I was like, oh, not really. I liked it, but, it definitely had some issues with it. So he's like, well, they just sent the box back, and there's the brand new model, which was quite a bit more expensive. It's the M3000 model. So, a brand new gun after 3.5 years of ownership. I didn't shoot it for probably 2 years. And, Stoeger, props to them too. There's pretty much no questions asked with it. They knew that there was a problem with that specific model, and they fixed it. So, Stoeger, thumbs up to them as well. That's not the gun I used for waterfowl now, but that's definitely a great experience. And I think contacting companies, they want to make you happy. They want to make more sales in the future, and they sent a brand new gun. So that was props to them for sure.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good transition into our shotgun discussion here, because a company's reputation and the way that they stand behind their products and their warranty coverage is important, because things can and will go wrong, and nothing's perfect, and there's always an opportunity for things to go bad. And when they do, it's nice to have a company that stands behind their product and understands that if they want to not only keep your business but earn your business in the future, they need to do right by you. So having the experiences that we've had has certainly been a positive experience, and one reason why I tend to lean towards a new gun versus a used gun when I'm making the purchase. Now, having said that, I don't buy guns that often, hunting type guns and that kind of thing. So being that I only do it rarely, it's more of a fun experience to go with the newer models and stuff. If I was buying more guns regularly, I would probably look to save a little more money and go used. Currently I own 2 hunting shotguns. I own my Beretta, and then I own an 870 pump that was given to me by my dad when I was 12. And I used that up until, 2012, and still will take that occasionally, turkey hunting, that kind of stuff. So, I'm the type of guy that when I buy a gun, that gun's mine forever, and it's going to be passed on to my family and, my kids and that kind of thing. So, buying something that's dependable and it's going to last and it's going to stand, behind it, the company's going to stand behind it's important. For this discussion today, we're going to stick to hunting shotguns, the standard style. We're not really so much going to go into double barrels, over-unders, upland bird, guns, that kind of stuff. For our general discussion, we're going to stick in the standard lane here. And I think the first thing to probably consider, once you figure out your price and your budget, that kind of thing, is whether you want to go pump or auto. And, for me, I knew that when I was looking at my Beretta, auto was what I wanted to do. I had the pump, I wanted to go auto. So my decision was even broke down a little bit further versus gas and inertia operating systems. But before we get into that, let's talk pump versus auto, Dan. What, where do you lean as far as that type of breakdown if you're looking to buy a shotgun?
It's a tough question. I shoot a autoloader now, and I think I always will. But I think I have a little bit different background than you on as far as the used gun. My dad and we probably go to 2 or 3 gun shows a year, and I think it's safe to say that he has a buying problem. And it's getting to the point where my gun safe is getting full with his guns. So we definitely do, a lot of looking around at guns. And
yeah, I don't really see a problem with that.
I guess if he's a hoarder, you can't have any better problem than stocking up on guns. But back to your question. I really enjoy shooting a pump, but as far as waterfowl, I think I'm an autoloader for life.
So here's where I stand on this. I think absolutely both have their merit, and I think that both can be as effective as the other. So here's what I mean by that. So when you shoot a pump gun, you fire the shot, you rack another round into the chamber. That momentary pause for me forces me to get my cheek back down on the stock, get a good sight picture, and make another good shot. I found myself with my auto loader that I will pull the trigger quicker than I should at times and not get a great sight picture or not get my head bared down on the sight enough, just because I can shoot it so fast and I feel the birds getting away from me, and it just sort of creates that anxiety to get the shots off as quick as possible. So although it is a nice benefit to be able to follow up quickly with the auto loader, I do think that for accuracy at times, there is a benefit to being on the pump gun.
Yeah, and I have just a small tip. If you're switching back and forth from an autoloader to a pump, one good thing to do if you are going to take a pump out, shoot a couple clays before you go out. Because if you've shot an autoloader for a year or two and then you're going back to a pump gun, I've done it numerous times where I go out, I take that first shot, and then I just keep pulling the trigger, and I can't figure out why my gun's not shooting. And then I'm like, oh, right, I need to pump. So just a small tip, something to keep you fresh before you go out with a pump.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I tend to try to stick with the same gun in season if I can. I'll take the pump a little bit with me in turkey season for a couple different reasons, and I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit more about autos, break that down a little bit more. So, you shoot Beretta, I shoot Beretta. Both of those guns are gas operated. The Stoeger you mentioned, Benelli's, guns of that nature are inertia driven. So for anybody listening that's not familiar with what that means, is basically when the round is fired, the gas pressure from the explosion inside the barrel is channeled to basically cycle the round from the magazine into the barrel. Inertia is the recoil of the gun, pulls back into the spring that's located in the buttstock of the gun, and it cycles works the action through the recoil of the gun. So by nature, a recoil will be slightly heavier on an inertia driven gun simply because it needs to be to work the action versus a gas. Now a gas is going to be more dirty, depending on the type of round you shoot, may require more cleaning, going to be more carbon on the parts and that kind of stuff. But for me, I've said it a couple times on this show. I don't care for recoil. I think the harder the recoil is part of the reason why I don't like 3.5-inch shells. The harder the recoil, the longer it is for me to get back a good sight picture and make an accurate follow-up shot. So I wanted light recoil. And for me, that was a no-brainer for gas. The drawback to that, and I've heard some people try to say that, a gas gun can freeze up on you in cold weather. You proved that it certainly can happen on your gun, but in fairness, that gun
that was nothing to do with gas. That was nothing to do with the gas. It was straight carbon buildup and my lack of cleaning, and I will keep it at that. I will own up to that one. Also, it was -8 degrees the entire hunt that we were out there, and I've learned from that. And now, pretty much after every hunt, I have a clean gun. So I think that's good practice anyway.
Yeah, and all I know is my Beretta didn't lock up that day, so we'll leave it at that. But anyway, so that's sort of the differences between gas and inertia. 6 one way, half the dozen the other. Some people want to say that an inertia-driven gun doesn't cycle as well on lighter loads. Yeah, I don't know if there's any truth or merit to that or not. I think all guns need to be broken in properly, follow the manufacturer's specs. If you do that, your gun should perform as it's supposed to. So, just some things to consider. I've already touched on this, but 3-inch versus 3.5-inch chamber. We talked about this in a previous episode that, we both shoot the 3-inch chambers for our reasons. If you want to go 3.5, by all means, more power to you. Just know that you're going to pay a little bit more for a 3.5-inch chambered gun versus a 3-inch gun. What do you think, Dan? Do you think you'll ever buy a 3.5-inch chamber?
I don't think so. Federal did a very intensive survey there, and the research was pretty intense. So, there weren't that many more pellets in a 30-inch circle, and like we said before, I just don't want the pounding on my shoulder if you're having a multi-day hunt or just a bang out hunt. So I don't want that. I don't want to take the pounding, and I feel like I don't have to. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep. And for me, the other big factor is price. If you shoot a lot, you're going to spend a lot more money with, going through a box or a case of shells of 3.5 versus 3. So for me, price is a big thing to consider when you're looking at that. So let's talk about finish. You've got your traditionalists that love the wood stock. You've got others that like the tactical look or the black synthetic look. And you got others like me that prefer the camo finish. Where do you stand there?
My gun right now is the black finish. Like we said before, waterfowlers are pretty rough on our equipment, and I think my next one is definitely going to be a waterfowl finish, the camo finish. One thing I do say, if you're getting into waterfowling and you like the wood stock and the shiny barrel, just when you're out looking at a duck spread and you're looking back at the blind, you don't want to be shining. And that's something I know, a lot of people are in blinds, but if you're, sneaking in and you don't have a huge pit set up or something like that, then, you have to be concealed a little more. So that's something to think about if you are going to purchase something like that. Cause I know we were setting decoys the first day and I could definitely see a shining gun in there. So just a tip to think about.
Yeah. I think you're okay whether you go synthetic, wood, camo finish, just as long as you're cautious. But I think most people are going to consider a black synthetic or a camo just simply because you can be a little bit tougher on it and you don't have to worry about the wood getting nicked and, looking dated and banged up. So for me, I prefer the camo finish. I've got the black synthetic on my Remington 870 and my Beretta's got the camo finish. And I got it mainly because my black synthetic gun shows rust so quickly if you don't keep clean and stay on it. If you go a couple weeks through the season and the rust spots will start to show up. The camo finish, that stuff's like bulletproof on the outside. I hunt the Potomac River. It's brackish water, so it's not a true salt environment, but I mean, there is an element of that there. So all of that can be just a little bit more hard, a little bit rougher on your firearm. So if I can get that little extra, outer layer of cover from the camo finish, I choose to do that. It's not that much more expensive. So for me in the long run, I think the camo finish is worth it. But again, everybody's got their own style and there's no right or wrong way to go about that choice.
I agree with that. I'm just thinking, my gun, when we show up to the field, my black, you can see every scratch on that, even from laying in a goose blind, on a crossbar. Like every time I pull up on that or, jump back in the blind, there's a new rub mark where every time you show up, your gun looks brand new. So, half dozen here,
Yep. I mean, I think it's all, all your hunting style. And if you carry your gun in the field with white gloves and you keep it protected and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to have a problem with whatever finish you use. I'm not like that. Mine's thrown in the bottom of the canoe. It's, banging around in the back of my truck. It's, it's part of the equipment out there for me. So, I need something that's going to be a little more durable. Let's talk, use of the gun. So there's things to consider. If you're going to buy just a waterfowl specific gun, that's all you're going to use it for. That's one thing. But if you're going to use this shotgun for waterfowl hunting, turkey hunting, small game, shoot some trap, shoot some skeet, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of things you want to consider. For me, the biggest one is barrel length. If I'm going to waterfowl hunt, I want a longer barrel, 26, 28 inches, something out on that range. If I'm hunting turkey, I certainly, I would like to get a nice shorter barrel that's easier for me to maneuver in the woods and that kind of thing. I tend to use my 870 for all things but waterfowl, and then I use my Beretta for just waterfowl because it's got the longer barrel. I've got an extended choke in it. It's a semi-auto gas gun, so it's a little bit heavier, a little harder for me to carry in the field. Pump guns are going to be infinitely lighter because there's less working parts involved. So for me, I take all of that kind of stuff into consideration before I make the purchase of a waterfowl gun. What are some other things that you consider, Dan?
Well, I think that's a good one. And if you are buying a used gun, say at a gun show or something, it speaks to experience of going out and, just seeing the size of the guns and just realize that different time periods had different size barrels on it. So, make sure you're not picking up a youth gun with a short barrel or, some of those old 10 gauges. Half the time you probably don't even have to shoot them because the barrels are so long. You could probably just knock birds out of the sky with it. So, that's something to think about if you are buying used.
Yeah, and one more thing to think about too, like I was saying with what you're going to use the gun for, consider the gauge that you're going to use. So if you waterfowl hunt once or twice a year and you're primarily an up game and squirrel hunting and some turkey and stuff, or things that you're going to use more of like a 20 gauge type firearm for, I would just say look at what you plan to use the gun for, and whatever you're going to use it for the most, go with that gauge. So if you're going to hunt primarily grouse and pheasant and that sort of thing, maybe you want to go with the 20 gauge and then just plus up on the ammo a little bit when you hunt waterfowl and make sure you're shooting birds a little bit closer, a little more ethical, that kind of thing. If you know that you're going to hunt squirrels maybe once or twice a year and you're going to primarily waterfowl and turkey hunt, get the 12 gauge and, you can go on the 2 3/4 light loads, when you decide to do a small game hunt. So consider what you're going to use the gun for, and whatever you're going to use the most, go that route.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And I think I might actually try a 20 gauge out a little more than what I have in waterfowl, just to, add a little excitement to it.
Oh, it can definitely get it done. I've seen a lot of youth hunters use them very, very effectively. I don't own a 20 gauge. If I did, I would probably use one. I would really like to get a 20 gauge over under, someday down the road, but we'll see. So let's talk a little bit about new versus used, and just some things to consider when you're buying a new gun or a used gun versus a new gun. For me, one of the biggest things is I like to know if I'm buying something used, I want to know a little bit about that gun. So I think it's a really good opportunity if you've got a friend or somebody local that that's selling a firearm that you can get your hands on and talk to the previous owner. Where they've been hunting with it, are they hunting in an assault environment or not? And, how rough are they on their equipment and that sort of thing. It just gives you a little bit of feel for what the gun's been through. And again, guns are incredibly durable, so they're going to take a lot, but there's certain things that, you really want to check. And for me, has it been exposed to a lot of salt water, that kind of thing? Those are really important when you're talking about the lifespan of the gun. What say you, Dan?
I think some of the obvious, just outer views of a gun, if you're looking at a barrel, if there's dents in it or, kind of like bulges, some of that gets into safety, and that's something you really don't want to deal with. And on the safety aspect of it, the actual safety, making sure that works, that clicks, and keeps you safe in the field is definitely top of the list.
Yeah, I think it's important to get your hands on the gun, break the action, make sure if it's a pump or if it's a semi-auto, is it smooth? Does it feel good? Is there any kind of slop in there? Does it feel loose to you? Anything like that? Make sure your choke tubes can be removed. Make sure they're not rusted in there so that you can't even get them out. Check that kind of stuff. Make sure the gun's got a plug in it. Check the safety, like you said. All of that stuff is super important. Check out the outside of the gun. Make sure there's no real significant dings or scratches and stuff. You don't want to overpay for a used gun that you get home. It's got a real big gouge in it and that kind of thing. So just sort of a good general look over is the key to buying a used gun. And the more information that you can grab on the gun, the better. And, there's a lot of, depending on the type of gun you're looking for, there's a lot of used options out there. If you don't feel like the first one that you pick up is the right fit, don't be afraid to put it down and move on, regardless of how good of a deal the guy's looking to give to you. Maybe he's going through a divorce or he's hard up and he needs some cash. If it's not the right gun for you or a good fit, don't be afraid to say no. But I want to touch on something that I think is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's something that I've never done personally, but I know is becoming very popular, and that's buying guns online or buying them from a long distance. And, obviously the big thing there is you just want to make sure that you're in line with all the federal and state statutes and regulations. Go through an authorized FFL dealer. I would be very, very hesitant personally to sell a gun online with, just the world that we live in. I have no idea what that person's intentions are with that gun when they buy it. I don't want any kind of blowback on me for that reason. So, for me, I don't know if I would ever consider selling a gun online, but I would consider buying one online if it was something that I felt was a good situation that I could do, and at a reasonable price and sort of that I felt comfortable with. But where do you stand, Dan, on buying guns online?
I have yet to buy online. I like to, either physically feel it or, know someone that had it previously, and that's kind of where I stand. But that's not to say I'm not on gunbroker.com all the time looking at guns, looking for deals. So I know a lot of people that do buy online, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm more I like to feel it, especially if it is used, just feeling, like you said before, the actions and making sure that it's just in the shape that it needs to be if I'm going to spend money on it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's common practice, but I gotta believe that if I was to buy a gun online, I would try to build in some type of review period where, 3-5 days after the purchase, when the gun's in my hands, I get a chance to look it over, make sure that I'm happy with it, fire the firearm, make sure that it's everything that I thought it was going to be when I made the purchase. I think it'd be easy for someone to get sort of, scammed by a gun that has been really beaten up or just not quite the condition that you thought you were getting. So, just be cautious if you go the online route. Not to say that it can't be done successfully and with a good experience, but for me personally, I would just make sure you cross your T's and you're dotting your I's when you're looking to buy something online. So
yeah, on that too, just check out different prices. Like I said, gunbroker.com, you can pretty much put any gun in there that you want. And I know that because my dad will call me about once, maybe twice a week and ask me what a good price on a certain gun is. And he'll throw out names that I've never heard before, and they have it on there. And I'll give him the lowest price and the highest price. And if it's in between, he usually picks it up. So, I'm kind of a research nerd that way as far as going on and finding prices. So, there's a ton of information out there. If if someone is making you an offer on a gun, if you're looking to pick something up, and make sure you're not getting ripped off on that section too.
Yeah, all good information there. If you have had an opportunity to buy a gun online, or you've got things that you like to consider when you're purchasing a new or used weapon, let us know. Shoot us an email, info@hpoutdoors.com. You can always reach us on the HP Outdoors hotline, 724-609-FOWL, 724-609-FOWL. 3695. We love hearing from you guys and learning and hearing from your experiences. And, buying a gun is certainly something that a lot of people can relate to and, can shed a lot of light on. So if you've got something that you think you can add to the discussion, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to share that with everyone else listening to the show. So anything else, Dan, that you think's noteworthy that we should discuss about buying shotguns before we move on to waterfowl taxidermy?
I did want to mention one thing. I started by saying check out the outside of the gun, but do your research on the inside of the gun as well. I mean, you talk about hunting brackish water. Check the barrel. Most of the times, if you are picking up a used gun, it's going to be clean. So, check it out. Make sure it's not pitted on the inside or, there's any major problems. But also, check the magazine tube. It most likely is going to be dirty, but if it's pitted or really, really rusty, that's something to consider. It might be beautiful on the outside, but if the inside doesn't work and you're not field dressing the whole thing, there might be more problems. So, just be aware of that.
Yeah, especially if there's, damage that you're not able to repair easily. If there's damage that needs to be repaired, that's one thing. But you need to know exactly what you're getting into as far as a financial commitment, and you need to make sure that your purchase, price reflects that commitment that you're going to make to the weapon. So, all good points. And again, please, if you've got something that you think is worthwhile, you can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, that kind of stuff, and continue the conversation there. So, Dan, let's change gears a little bit here. And we're going to be joined by Tim Schloss of Tim Schloss Taxidermy. He's located out of Erie, Pennsylvania. And, he does some phenomenal waterfowl taxidermy. We've both had the opportunity to see him at some of the shows locally there in Western PA. And he's going to come on the show. And we wanted to do this because pretty much every time that we've hunted that someone wants to mount a bird, once the bird is harvested, there's a debate or a discussion about what you should do with that bird until you get it to the taxidermist. Some people say wrap it in newspaper. Some people say put it in plastic. Some people will say put it in a nylon, whatever the case might be. A lot of different information out there, a lot of different opinions, all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to bring him on the show just to have that conversation and find out exactly what should we, be doing with our birds in the field, because there's nothing worse than harvesting a bird of a lifetime or, a bird that has some sentimental value to you only to damage it by something that you did inappropriately or, didn't take care of up front. So, I'm excited to chat with him. I think he's going to have a lot of good stuff to say. And, I'm looking forward to talking some waterfowl taxidermy with him.
Yeah. He's been in the business a long time. And like you said, the stuff that he brings, the mounts that he brings to shows they're just they're not real. I mean, they're just unreal. They're amazing. So, he knows what he's doing. He has 50 some years experience, and he knows what he's talking about. So I'm excited to talk to him.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. We're going to be joined on the show by Tim Schloss of Tim Schloss Taxidermy. All right, we are excited to be joined on the show by Tim Schloss of Tim Schloss Taxidermy, located in Erie, PA. We're excited to ask him a few questions about, something that we believe is often misunderstood, and maybe there's some bad information that's circulating around out there. So we're going to chat with Tim here to get some clarification on the process. So Tim, welcome to the show. It's Josh Palm and Dan Harushka. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on.
We're more than happy to have you on, and we appreciate you giving us some time to talk about something that, we think is pretty important. Obviously, guys put a lot of time and money and effort into getting in the field and, having successful hunts. And when you harvest that bird of a lifetime, or you want to, secure that memory for years to come, it's an important process that, probably doesn't get enough attention as it should. So we're glad that you're here, and we're excited to talk to you about the process. And maybe before we get into it too much, just tell us a little bit about yourself and, the business that you run there, and sort of, how you kind of got started in waterfowl taxidermy.
Well, I basically got started the way a lot of young guys get started. I was in my mid-teens, and a gentleman in my neighborhood was a taxidermist, and we kind of, as kind of hanging around the taxidermy shop, and then I just kind of stuck with it, and then when he passed away, when I was a senior in high school, I went to work for one of the bigger taxidermists in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I was Luke Kunkel, and I was doing, whatever you were told to do, doing skinning squirrels and skinning deer heads and all the other kind of stuff. But the birds have always been my passion, and it was something that those guys noticed early on that I kind of had a hand at it, so they really encouraged me, I'm glad they did.
Yeah. I've had the chance to take a look at some of your work at, sports shows and exhibits in the Western PA area there. And, there's a lot of guys out there that do taxidermy and kind of dabble in birds. And, I think a lot of dedicated waterfowlers know how difficult it can be to work with birds and feathers and the skill set that it takes to be great at that craft. Talk to us a little bit about what a guy should be looking for, when considering a taxidermist to ensure that he gets a quality product. Are there any red flags that you would say, is something that you should probably take as a sign to keep looking? Obviously a lot of guys, price is a big thing for them, and, but that obviously shouldn't be the only consideration that people take into account. So what are some of the things that you think a good taxidermist should have going for them when talking to a client?
Well, I think the biggest thing is whether you're having a bird mount or a game head or a fish or whatever, as in a lot of things, certain guys have like specialties, Now, not to say that I know some very good taxidermists that are basically very good at all aspects of it. There are guys like that. But in most cases, most guys, they have a strong interest in deer, and they do a great deer, and or they do small game or fish or whatever. I think with birds, and I would have to tend to agree with you, they're a little bit different type of thing. They're very delicate, and it's something that there's so many different varieties. I hate to say a whitetail's a whitetail, but a whitetail's a whitetail. With birds, which is one of the big reasons I got so involved in it. There's so many different kinds of waterfowl that are native to North America, and then and even with the game birds, there's just so many different ones, and they all have their unique personalities and colors that you have to reproduce. And I think it's best to look. I hate to say a specialist, but if it was me getting one mounted, I would look for a waterfowl bird specialist. A lot of my clients may take their deer heads, whatever, and their game stuff, but they bring their birds to me. So I think that's the way I would approach it. I would look for a specialist. And as for red flags, I think the best thing to do is actually go to the shop or go to and actually see the work. You know what I mean? And as you said, you have to consider your prices. A lot of guys will, if you start the conversation with how much it is, you need to know how much they are, but generally you're going to pay probably a little bit more for a specialist, but you're probably going to get more for your money. But then again, that being said, in this economy, if a gentleman, you should try to get the best that you can afford. I wouldn't go with what's the cheapest. And I think that's true in a lot of things, whether it be, buying a shotgun or a car or anything else. So I would say just go and see the work and make sure that you're on the same page. What you're paying for is what you're expecting.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way with just about anything. You're going to get what you pay for. And when you're looking for a specialist to, if you're getting a bird of a lifetime and you want it to last a long time and not be, having feathers falling out, you probably don't want a guy, that is straight fish that also has a permit to do birds. So, I think that's...
Yeah, and the thing is, I think most guys, even on the, and it's even more than just the feathers falling, I think that the way the chemicals are made anymore today, most guys, even a good game guy can... He could probably put one together for you that is not going to fall apart. The difference between a specialist, I think, and someone who is just doing birds is that part I mentioned about the little subtleties that each species of bird has. And a guy who really studies them probably has a better chance of putting that look, that the reproduction of the colors, the look of the eyes and stuff like that back into it, as opposed to someone who's just, putting it together by the numbers, if you know what I mean.
Yep, I know what you mean. And, every time I see you at an expo and checking out your birds, I mean, you're definitely amazing at your craft. So let me switch gears a little bit, Tim, and let's talk about stages of feathers. And what's the best time of the year for shooting a bird? I know, they get, different feathers coming in, and what time really is the best to get a great looking mount?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and where we live, unfortunately, it's a great place to live, and our bird hunting is very good. But the problem is, being in such a northern climate, and with birds molting or even the young of the year, they don't come into full color. Some of the species, especially noticeably like blue-winged teal and shovelers and stuff, they may not get full, good color till well into December. The problem with that is they're long gone from here.
Right.
So being a taxidermist in Pennsylvania or Minnesota or New York or stuff like that is a little tougher than, say, guys that are further south, due to the fact that we're handling birds a lot of times that really aren't totally up to color. Now, in my business, I have a lot of clients that travel, so they're killing ducks that are, in January and December, and you'll see the difference. I mean, to use an illustration, we mount some really nice wood ducks out of Pennsylvania, some beautiful birds. But that same bird in, say, Georgia in January is going to be that much better. But then again, I mean, this is where we live, and this is what we shoot. So we're stuck with it. But that's kind of the way it is. Now, certain species of ducks, mallards, black ducks, cans, redheads, we do shoot those late, and we do shoot some beauties. But I would say the teal, pintails, stuff like that, by the time when they come through here, they probably really aren't up to color yet. Not to say that, there's the exception to the rule, but generally, the later in the season, the better. Now, the only time I've ever seen that kind of work against it is in with the conservation seasons on the snow geese and stuff. I've mounted geese that are actually past prime. The feathers, they almost got kind of a broomy look. They're almost like starting to wear out, from the long flight south and the long flight back north. But generally, they'll speak, and later season birds are better. But we have to take what we got.
Yeah, and besides the migration, you also have to deal with our seasons here in PA. Some of our seasons go out at the end of December, so that, you go to Pymatuning or Conneaut Lake or Lake Erie, and you're seeing all these beautiful birds, and you don't get a shot at them. So that's another thing you have against you. But
yeah. That's kind of a universal. I have taxidermist friends that a lot of us are in the northern climes, and that's just what we deal with. It makes our job a little bit harder, obviously, because you can. There's a lot of stuff that can be repaired. Blood on the feathers and stuff like that. You have to wash them and degrease them and that kind of thing. But you can't grow feathers. I mean, that's the downside. And unfortunately, I do have gentlemen who'll either mail me birds or drop birds off, and I just have to tell them, listen, you really don't want to do this. Now, if it's something they're never ever going to get another one, or if it's like it's a kid's first duck or something like that, then you have to do what you have to do. But generally, most guys appreciate that. They know that you can't, I can't make that mallard that's on the front of the DU cover, look like that with the bird that you've given me. It's early season, half the feathers aren't even there, So that's something you have to, and you have to get an eye for, I have a really good clientele. That doesn't happen that much, but it does happen.
Yeah, besides blood and some feathers not quite being there yet, what are there any other characteristics that someone should be looking for when they consider taking a bird to get mounted?
Well, the big thing is, I mean, there's feather, like I would say feather damage. I mean, I think obviously they've all been shot, so there's some blood. Blood generally is not an issue whatsoever. The taxidermists, they have to be washed in soap and water, even down to woodcock. I mean, I did a woodcock today. I mean, believe it or not, I wash them in soap and water. You know what I mean? And you would think it's going to fall apart. Well, you have to be very careful with it, but it'll hold together, but they have to be washed. So the blood isn't an issue. Feather damage, actual feathers missing, shot through, say, the eyelids and stuff like that. I mean, now a bird that, to use an example, a bird that has maybe chipped wingtips, you may not want to mount it stand or flying, but it might make an excellent standing mount. So, that's the kind of thing where if a guy brings one in, he has his heart set on flying, like, well, you can't, I wouldn't do that with this bird, but you might want to go standing. Well, at that point, they either make a decision to go with that recommendation or wait and get a better one. You have to kind of work around the bird. And obviously you want to show the strength of a bird. You know what I mean? You want, if a bird's got a really, really great side pockets, but they're half the feathers are out of there, like their wood duck. Well, wait and get a better one, because you can't grow those back. But generally that's the kind of thing where, a lot of times you can hide flaws in birds in the damage. But I'd say the big thing is just look at how beat up it is. And then the other thing is, the maturity of a bird. And unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that takes a little experience. If a novice duck hunter may not be able to pick up the little subtleties that, of what a good bird is as opposed to a first-year bird. I can't really give you any tips on that. That's just a matter of experience. Once you, handle enough birds and all of a sudden you pick one up and say, whoa, this one's a lot nicer than that last one, those are the ones you start looking for. Now, the other thing is the species thing. We're living here, like canvasbacks. If you live in an area that you don't kill many canvasbacks, well, when you get a canvasback, you're going to probably get him mounted whether he's spectacular or he's halfway there, So sometimes you have to do, you get it mounted more for the uniqueness of the bird, not the quality of the bird.
Right. And I just wanted to go off that. Last year I shot, actually Josh was with me, but I shot a banded wood duck, and it is in the freezer right now. And the more pictures I look at and the pictures that I look back at the actual hunt, and I'm looking at it, and it just doesn't seem like it's ready. The hood just isn't a complete hood. And the more I research and look, I just know it's not the right time for that. So, that's a great point that you bring up, and a little bit of research can help you out in that way. I did have a more specific question, just about considering for a mount, and is any kind of beak damage, is that something that is able to be fixed?
Yes, because actually anymore, the way that at least the way I do it. Now, not everybody does this, but I'm going to say in waterfowl or in game bird taxidermy, the majority of the guys you'll find now using it, what is it? It's a cast bill. It's an artificial bill. So what they do, and the reason for it is, a lot of guys say, well, it's not really my duck. Well, that's true. I mean, it's almost like the old days when you'd see like a swordfish. Well, the only thing you really got back that was yours was the actual bill of the fish. The rest of it was a casting. And this is kind of the same situation. What we do is they made castings of a freshly killed duck's bill. The two advantage of that is there's no shrinkage. So if you look at old taxidermy that's around somewhere, if you look at the bill, it's all shriveled down like a potato chip. Well, the stuff that's done recently, there is none of that shrinkage. And the birds are like king eiders, common eiders that have a very fleshy bill. there's no shrinkage whatsoever. I mean, it's still plump. It looked alive. That's one advantage. The other advantage is you don't have to make an incision in the neck to remove the skull or to get the skull out. You actually come around, basically around the edge of the bill where the feathers touch the bill, and bring the skull right through the front of right through the front of the face. And then you have to super glue it back on there. But you're able to paint the bill, pre-paint the bill, so you don't have to do any masking. You don't have an incision, which allows you to make more turns and things to the neck without having lumps and bumps and stuff like that. It just makes for a much, much more realistic, lifelike mount. So actually, a shot-up bill is not any way stops you. The only time that can run into a problem is if the shot is right at the seam between the bill and the feathers. Sometimes that can be an issue, especially in this day and age with steel shot. Obviously, a lot of guys are using, deuces and BBs, and some of these shots they have out now they aren't perfectly round. They've actually got kind of a different shape to them, and they do more damage than the old round lead did, for sure. I mean, they're definitely real holes. So it can be a problem if the hit is right at that edge, but the actual bill itself, that is all replaced. The shot to the eyelid is probably more of an issue than one to the bill.
It's interesting because a lot of times you see birds with a bill that's been shot up, and I know me, I kind of always considered, never really thought that was something that could be fixed. So, I'm sure there's guys that have probably passed on birds that they would have liked to have mounted, for that. So I think that's good information to know.
Yeah, that was cool.
But so
some of the shot holes in the feet can be repaired too. I mean, if the feet are really damaged, then maybe you want to do something with 1 foot up or something. But just a shot hole in the foot can usually be. I can use a skull ball or epoxy, the type of thing to fill that hole and actually repair it. So that's something repairable also.
And so I'm sure that obviously there's damage from the shot that cannot be repaired and can ruin the opportunity to have a great mount. But I'm sure that equally as often, or maybe not as equally as often, but I'm sure it does happen that a hunter will not take the right steps in preserving that bird from the time of the harvest till he gets the bird to you, to ensure that you can do what you need to do to make it look as great as possible when you start the mounting process. So this is an area that I think there's a lot of information out there. I don't know what exactly is the right way and what's the wrong way. So, some guys say plastic, some guys say newspaper, some guys say da-da-da-da-da. So let me ask you, what is the proper way to preserve a bird that you harvest in the field until it gets to you and ready to mount? And what are some common mistakes that you're seeing people make?
Okay. First and foremost, the one thing that I would do is you want to get the bird into a freezer, or at least cold ASAP. I have a lot of guys they'll leave them sitting out in the back porch for 2-3 days, and then all of a sudden take it over to the taxidermist. Well, that's fine if you tell the taxidermist that he knows it's been out for 3 or 4 days. But the problem is if he refreezes it and then, next July takes it out and it sits for 24 hours there while it's gone, well, then you can start having an issue. So I'd say the number one thing is to get that bird, cold or frozen ASAP. And that's easy to do when you're hunting from home on a trip. Sometimes you don't have access to a freezer, so you might want to, get it on ice and get it cool. Keep it dry and get it cool. Now, waterfowl are a lot tougher than upland game birds. I mean, you can be a little rougher with them and not do any real damage to them. Now, like grouse and pheasants, say you're on the hunt and you shoot a nice pheasant or a grouse. I do carry nylon stockings, but this is the part here we really want to discuss because that's always been a thing that guys go put it in a nylon. Well, there's nothing wrong with putting it into a nylon stocking, put it into your game bag to get it to where you're going. But once you get it there, cut it out of that stocking. Do not freeze that bird in the stocking. Reason being is if it's not in there perfectly right and the feathers are twisted, you can cause some long-term damage. The nylon stocking is probably the worst thing in the world to store a bird in. You know what I mean? But that being said, when I'm pheasant hunting, I carry one because when I put it into my game bag, I want it. It does keep that bird from getting all ruffled up. But the minute we get back to wherever we're staying, I cut that bird out of that stocking. You know, that's probably the biggest thing that misconceptions. A lot of guys put them in stockings, and that's not good. The other thing is paper products. I wouldn't wrap them in newspaper, paper towels, anything like that, because what happens is that paper actually draws the moisture out of the bird. Plus the newsprint, you could possibly have some, like on a buffalo head or something like that, and it's wet, and you put it on that newsprint, you know, the ink could transfer onto the white. You may not get that out.
Yeah, I don't think your mount's going to look real good if you got that nice bull can with the classified section across the side.
Yeah, exactly. And I would, like I said, that's something that I would keep it out of the paper products. Now, I do on my website. I have a page that kind of basically everything I'm telling you here. But the one thing I do know is a lot of guys. The best thing to do is just to take the bird, put his head down onto his breast, so that it's not out straight, and put it into a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. Now, sometimes, you know, guys, there might be some blood in the bag, it just doesn't look good in your freezer. So you could put a paper towel in there, in the bag with the bird until it's frozen. Then once it's frozen, open the bag and get the towel out of there. And another thing too is if you're getting it to the taxidermist in a timely manner, say within under a year, it really isn't that big of an issue on the drying. But if it's going to sit for 3-4 years with paper wrapped around, it is definitely going to speed up that drying out process. But the big thing was to get the head down onto the breast, get it into the freezer ASAP. Now you don't need to gut the bird. You actually do not gut the bird. You know, don't take the breast out of the bird. You know, it's either a mounter or an eater. You know, and you don't have to put. I've had guys put cotton down the mouth, and even cotton in the vent and stuff like that, which it doesn't hurt anything. I mean, you're not doing any damage, but to be honest with you, it really isn't necessary. Now, if you have a lot of blood on a bird and then you want to wipe some of that off, just use cold water. You know, wipe a little bit of it off just to put it into the bag. I mean, I have to wash them anyway, but you're not doing any damage by doing that, if you know what I mean. It's not that you're not wrecking it by doing that. Really, basically, the only way you can really destroy one would be the long-term in a nylon stocking, or the other way is the wrapping it all up in newspaper and putting it in the freezer. That can cause some damage.
So how long will a bird stay good in the freezer before? I know you said anytime within a year is really not an issue, but say guys trying to scrap together some cash or whatever the situation may be. I mean, how long is too long when you should probably toss it out and look for another one?
All right. Well, before I answer that one, I have one more point on the first one. The reason I said about putting the head down on the breast, you won't do any damage by freezing it out straight, but you could, if you were to hit it on something, you could actually break that head right off, almost like a popsicle, you know what I mean? So that's why you say bring the head down. Okay, now, to move on to the next question, a lot depends on how it's wrapped. If you have a bird, I've had a lot of these guys actually use these shrink wrap things, without really drawing it down real tight, just taking a little bit of air on them. They last a long time that way. They last great. Just frozen in a Ziploc bag. I mean, 3-4 years, 3 years is nothing. I mean, I've mounted birds that have been in the freezer 5 years, 6 years. Now, that being said, the best way to do it is, within a year to 2 years. That's when it's still fine. A lot of it depends on how it was wrapped and also how your freezer runs. I mean, some freezers seem to dry things out more than others. I've had birds that a guy's had his freezer for 2 years. You take it out, and it's like, geez, it looks like it's fresh. And then you get one that's been a year, and it's already starting to show some freezer burn signs. And what that generally is the way they were wrapped, and maybe the freezer. You definitely, I think the best way, if you get them ziplocked in the freezer, you don't see anything in 2 years. 3 years, you might see just a hair, but it's still more than mountable. You start getting in that 5-6 year range is when you start seeing some problems. But they're usually correctable. What an average taxidermist would do would be, if you can get them out of the skin, what I do is I inject it all around the face and like the tips and the wings with water, with soapy water. Get that bird out of his skin, get him degreased, and then I'll soak him in soapy water. And you can get that skin to relax right back up. And, like I said, I have seen birds that are, God will bring it to you, they've been in your freezer for 6-7 years, and it's a piece of cardboard, So it's a lot in how it's wrapped.
I think there's just a ton of great information there. And for our listeners out there, Tim's been doing this for over 50 years. So he has seen a lot of birds come through and knows what works. So just to throw that out there, not to date you or anything there, Tim, but just so they know that, if they go to your website and see the quality of birds and what you can do, they know that they're dealing with a professional here. So with that being said, your new website's up. There's a lot of pictures of birds on there that are just absolutely beautiful. And myself, I just look at that and I'm like, how does that happen? So tell us, I want to know what's the hardest, most difficult species to mount?
Well, for me, the hardest, most difficult, common one, it's funny, it's the big and the small. Swans can be a total nightmare. They are very difficult to mount. That the head is about the size of a buffalo head. You know what I mean? They are, and they are a very difficult bird to mount. On the opposite end of the spectrum is woodcock. Woodcock are they're very, very hard to mount. For the reason being is, with the swan, it's strictly the size of it. There's just so much surface area, just so much going on. Now, woodcock, their problem is they literally have a skin that it's pretty much like wet tissue paper. It is really difficult to get them out of their skin. Plus, they are very fatty. They have a lot of fat on them. So I would have to say, to me, the hardest bird to mount is a swan, but woodcock got to be right after it. Now I'm sure there's worldwide. There's tons of birds that are more difficult than either one of the two I mentioned. But I'm just those are the ones that we get here in the United States. So those would be the ones that I would say are the worst.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like much fun if it's like wet paper. That would probably get pretty frustrating. Let's what's your favorite duck to mount while we're on a topic? What's your favorite duck and what's the most popular bird that comes into your shop? I know that you have tons of them on your site and you probably deal with a bunch, but
yeah, I would say overall, historically, probably the bird that you do the most of where we live is wood ducks. Reason being, they're obviously a very beautiful duck. It's a duck that's very common. We do get them, and we do get some very, very, very pretty ones. We get some very nice wood ducks here. Without duck season being on, I've already taken in a number of some, very, very nice birds. So I'd say overall, wood ducks are probably the most popular that I do the most of. Me personally, they're all, they all have their highs and lows. If I'd have to say my two favorites would be, I'm on a nice black duck. I'll say, I'm not afraid to say that. I'm on a nice black duck. I love Greater Scop, or another one of my favorites. I'm doing a lot of eider. I mean, they're all fun to do in their own right. They're all. That's the beauty thing about them. There is such a variety. But I have to say, wood ducks are probably the most common, and black ducks are probably my favorite.
So Tim, when a guy drops a bird off at the taxidermist, you hear these stories, and I'll talk to guys, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm waiting 2-3 years, my bird's still not done," that kind of stuff. What's a realistic time? What's a realistic time frame? I mean, I know it depends on how busy the shop is, but
A lot depends on the shop. I mean, I have birds that are 2 years, but generally the ones that I have are 2 years out. Are the guys have multiple birds, so I may get one done, and then for the whole project might take 2 years, but they get one, and then 6 months later I give them another one, and then the fourth one, by the time they have the fourth one back, it is two years. I have gentlemen that have God in the past, these guys they're collectors. They go all over the world. They may have 14, 15 ducks in here at one time. So obviously, with being a one-man shop, I can't do them all that fast. So a lot with the turnaround time, I would say an average turnaround time, I'm going to call it 10 to 12 months. And that's what I've been telling people this year is 10 to 12 months. I'd like to get it 8 to 10, but 12 or 10 to 12 is the reasonable amount. That when you say, and that's an average, because I do have gentlemen that I have birds that were shot here in October that will be done for Christmas. Guys say, I really want this for my son. Well, I can usually fit one in. You know what I mean? I have birds that are shipped to me from other parts of the country, and I do a decoy show in Cleveland, Ohio every year. Well, those gentlemen are going to be at that decoy show. So if I know I can get away with not having to ship those birds back, I get them done. So some people get theirs in 2 months. Some people get them in 3 months, but I'd say generally on average 10 to 12, and I'd say that's probably a very good industry standard. What I would say, I'd say most of the guys that have good businesses, and generally the guy that has a good business, there's only two reasons you'd have it. He's either really good or he's really, really cheap. Those would be the two reasons why somebody has a lot of work.
So
the thing is, I'd say that 10 to 12, and I'd be a little nervous. I mean, I'm not that I'd be nervous, but if a guy could tell you I could have this back in a month, I'm thinking that's impossible. It can't dry in a month,
Right.
So
it's you've mentioned this a couple times, and I've been wanting to ask. Obviously, people can ship you birds in the mail. You've mentioned that a few times. Is there any kind of special process involved with that? I mean, is it an issue to mail or ship a once live animal through the mail? And
there is. I mean, there's the obvious. The certain times of year in July, you definitely want to go next day. Generally, what I suggest is I personally like you. I'm not doing a commercial here, but I like UPS. I've always had really good luck with them, and FedEx is very good too. I usually tell guys to go either next day or second day. And a lot depends on the time of year, number one, where it's coming from. And then the other thing would be how you're going to wrap it. Now, what I suggest is you Ziploc, put the bird in obviously frozen, put it into 2 Ziploc bags so that it's no way it can leak, because obviously the carriers get a little nervous if there's blood coming through the bottom of the box. I mean, I don't blame them, so you want at least 2 Ziploc bags. Then you put it into a sturdy cardboard box and insulate the box with newspaper, that top corner, whatever. And that way there, I would say, you probably want to lean toward next day. Now, if you want to get one of those little coolers, a little styrofoam 6-pack cooler or something, and then same deal, Ziploc it, insulate it in the box. Now that if you put them in one of the coolers, you might get away with second days, but you can save a little money in your shipping, but then you have a little bit more money in your packaging. So it's probably one way is out the other. A lot of the reasons for the insulation in the box isn't so much insulation as keeping the bird. You don't want the bird banging around in there. You want him where he's in there and he's not going anywhere. And what you want to do is ship on a Monday or Tuesday, and obviously notify the taxidermist that you're sending it to, tell him, make sure that he's going to be around there to accept the package and get that bird into the freezer ASAP. You don't want it sitting on his back porch for a week. So that's the one thing. I mean, most guys that ship that never get anything that they don't notify me.
Right. I think a lot of guys, I gotta imagine some guys don't even consider the fact that they could ship a bird, to the taxidermist. So they're kind of looking local, and they may or may not be happy with the choices that they have local. So it's good to know that you can look around and send something out of state or whatever like that if you feel the need. So
I think that at one time that was, I think with the internet, that's less and less the norm. I mean, there's some unbelievable websites out there, and a lot of guys are, they're shipping them all over the country. I had a taxidermist from Alabama one time. I was on the phone with him. He'd called me to ask me. He'd seen something I had on one of the websites. Called me to ask me how he did it, and he asked me, "Where's Northeast Pennsylvania? How close is that to you?" And I go 15 miles, and he's laughing. There's a gentleman from Northeast had sent half a dozen ducks to this taxidermist in Alabama. And he's laughing. He goes, "What?" He goes, "I don't understand this." I go, I told him, I've got ducks here that were shot in Texas. I mean, that's just the way it is. I'm shipping birds to California this year, to Texas, and I could name 10 different taxidermists in Texas that are every bit as good as I am, probably better. But, a guy will get on there and he just looks at the website and he sees the way you do things and he likes your style, I guess. And they look at like the extra cost for shipping is worth the money.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to be said for comfort and peace of mind, knowing that you're going to get a quality mount back, and for the money that you're going to invest. So I think a lot of the trust is goes into that relationship. So it's something that you probably see clients year after year, repeat clients all the time.
I see having done it now for 45 years, and actually as a visitor, so I'm doing the grandchildren of some of the guys that I started with.
Wow.
I mean, I've seen, it's really, it's amazing. I know the fathers, I know the the grandfathers, and now it's the kids, and it's gratifying. And to be honest with you, websites are a beautiful thing. You can get on there, but basically any taxidermist, I'm sure will all agree with this. There's nothing like good old word of mouth. You do a bird for this guy, and he likes it, and then his friends get it done, and it just, you get the ball rolling. And plus I do 2 or 3 decoy shows. I generally don't do sport shows. I go to decoy shows, but sport shows are a great thing for a guy getting started because you can actually meet the people and talk to the people, and it's a lot more personal than a website, that's for sure.
Yeah, no question there. And like I said, Dan and I both mentioned we've seen, your work at the shows, and that's, how we got kind of turned on to having you on the show. We've seen your stuff firsthand. So, you've given us a ton of great information, and I'm really happy that you were able to clarify a couple things, as far as the process and the preparation for us. So I've got one more question for you, and we'll let you get out of here on this. So you've been in the business a long time. You've mounted a ton of different ducks, and a lot of people, they want to recreate that uniqueness of the bird, and, not everybody, wants just the standard type of thing. And there's some really cool, ideas and things that you've got on your website, and we'll make sure that we get that information out to our listeners so they can go and check it out and see all the stuff you have. But tell us a little bit, or share with us maybe your most favorite mount that you recall, or just the coolest thing you've done. And, maybe just share a few ideas that guys can consider when, how to display and how to recreate that mount to give it that unique look and, sort of set it apart from maybe some of the other mounts that they've had done in the past.
Okay. Well, number one, that's the one thing that because as I said, I've had guys, just send me birds, I've had to ship the texts like that. A lot of the people that when they're sending me what they're telling me that they like in what I do is they like it simple. I do a lot of birds on just a 2-inch thick walnut, piece of walnut, and a very small plain habitat, and just your classic standing duck. And and when I'm doing them, that's not because that's what I like. I mean, that's as boring as that sounds. To me, that is the best way to do something. Just I follow the keep it simple, stupid rule. You know what I mean? Just keep it plain. Just keep it simple. Do a classic standing mount. You might want to do preening or something like that, but some of these real elaborate poses, as time goes on, it just grows old. Now, as for being unique mounts, ones that I've really done that I've really liked, I did a ring neck duck. It's actually on the website if you get under the ring neck part. The gentleman that I know, his father had carved a ring neck duck back in the 90s at a class. And then the grandson, he took his son to be the grandson. He took him to Louisiana and killed a kid, shot a very, very nice ring neck duck. So the way we did it was we have the mounted ring neck swimming up behind the carving. And I actually had to drill holes in the bottom of the carving. It killed me to do it, but I did it. It was something that anybody who's ever seen that mount just loves it. You know what I mean? I love it. I mean, it's classic. It's not real crazy. There's not a lot of, it's just a swimming bird. You know, it's not doing a lot of crazy stuff. And that's basically what I like. I like things very, very simple. And, but I've done some really wild stuff too. A lot of this stuff now, guys with some of the king eiders and stuff like that, they can get some pretty elaborate bases in there. You know, when you put the investment in just going to get the bird, the taxidermy is a very small price to pay.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I appreciate the classic look of a nice, Drake mallard or a bull can. Some of the stuff that you've got on your website where I believe it's the cans that are hanging on the driftwood, on
a lot of those. Yeah, there's a lot of dead. Yeah, I like dead mounts. That's something that you can, in some respects, if you have the right decor to your home, or if a lot of the guys that do dead mounts, they have such large collections already, but they shoot a couple nice birds and are going, I got to do something with it, so we'll get a dead mount. Now, it's funny because, like, in my home, I really don't have anywhere I'd put a dead mount. So a dead mount's something, I think you almost have to have the right decor for it. But I've been doing a lot of them. I'm telling you, it seems to be very, very popular.
Yeah, it's a cool look. It's a unique look. It was definitely something that caught my eye on your website. And we've talked a lot about your website. And we encourage everyone to go and check you out at timschlosstaxidermy.com. We'll post that link on our website, and when you go to check out the podcast there, you can link over to his stuff. And if you have any questions or you want to talk to Tim about his services and what he might be able to do for you, you can reach Tim at timschlosstaxidermy.com. And Tim, we're really happy that you're able to come on the show, and we think that this is a really valuable topic that a lot of guys get a lot of bad information on, or maybe just not the right information. So we're glad that you're able to come on and clarify everything for us. And hopefully now's the busy time of year, so you'll be working in the shop, and we won't be having as much opportunity to talk to you because you'll be mounting up all those nice birds that guys are bringing into your shop.
Well,
so we appreciate the time.
And I would like to get a little duck hunting in too.
I guess you're entitled to a little bit of that yourself as well. So, well, good luck with the season. Again, we appreciate the time, and we encourage everybody to check you out at timschlosstaxidermy.com. Tim, thanks again.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, there you have it. Tim shed a lot of light on some of the questions we had, and, sort of confirmed some of the things that I had thought to be true, and then kind of debunked a couple things that I wasn't sure, some things that I maybe had received some bad information on in the past. So I think it was a worthwhile chat with Tim, and we'd encourage everybody to check out timschlosstaxidermy.com. He's got a brand new website that he launched, and on there, he actually has a tab that says, things that you should do to prepare your bird to be taken to the taxidermist. So definitely a good resource, and I really enjoyed our conversation with him.
Yeah, and I would tell people, don't hesitate to mail your bird of a lifetime to them, because I guarantee what you get back, you will be happy with. And on that note too, I just wanted to throw another tip out. If you're hunting with a dog, if you're duck hunting or whatever kind of hunting you're doing, and you think that you shot a bird that you want to get mounted, hold that dog back, because like he was saying, the feathers, he can fix a lot of things, but if some feathers are pulled out, you can't create the feathers. So that's one thing to think about. Maybe you want to go out in the swamp and pick that bird up yourself. So that's just something that I've read over the years. So just throwing it out there.
Yeah, good point. I think that's something that everyone, we talked to Tim after we finished the interview, and I told him how I've got a bull can on my target list big time, and if I'm able to take one this year, I'm definitely going to be giving him a call and seeing what we can do, because he's just got some incredible pictures of canvasback mounts on his website. And I mean, he's got incredible pictures of all kinds of birds on there, but for me, canvasback, that holds the special place, and that's I've yet to take a canvasback, and that's definitely on my my to-do list this year. So hopefully I get that chance, and hopefully I get a chance to call up Timmy and ask him what we're able to work out with the canvasback. So again, check Tim out, Tim Schloss, taxidermy.com. If you've got questions or want to talk to him directly, you can email him at tim@timschlosstaxidermy.com. So we want to thank Tim again for joining the show, and we'll include all his information on our podcast link on our website, so you can go there to find all the information on Tim. What do you think, Dan? You want to get into the parting shot?
Yep, I think we had a good show here. Let's do it.
All right. This week's parting shot is, something that when we were thinking about doing different segments for this show and what we wanted to cover, I thought that this week's parting shot should be aptly named Success Defined. So when I got to thinking about what it means to be successful in the field, I couldn't help but think that most people probably think, what is it, a day's limit, a full limit, a full strap of birds? Is that what makes a day successful in the field? I'm not so sure. For me, every day that I spend in the blind is a success. Every day is a gift. The sound of whistling wings, enjoying the pursuit of the waterfowl that we all love. I just give thanks every day that I have the opportunity to get out in the field and enjoy God's creation. I think time spent in the field with family and your friends is the most gratifying and satisfying thing that you can do. There's a lot of people that don't get the opportunity to enjoy the outdoors like waterfowl hunters do. We get the opportunity to be in the blind early in the morning, watching the sun rise and watching God's creation wake up. To quote Donnie Vincent, he said, to experience fantastic things, you have to put yourself in fantastic places. And I honestly can't think of a more fantastic place than the waterfowl blind on an early morning. So for me, every day that I get to be in that place is a success. That's going to do it for the episode 9 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We want to thank Tim Schloss of Tim Schloss Taxidermy for joining us. And we hope you guys enjoyed our discussion on buying shotguns and what to look for when purchasing a new or used shotgun. You can continue the conversation with us at hpoutdoors.com. Shoot us an email at info@hpoutdoors.com. Check us out on iTunes. If you haven't had a chance, please go on and give us a 5-star rating and a review. We certainly appreciate that. And give us a call, 724-609-FOWL. So till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.